You are watching Anderson Community Television. My name is Kyle Densler. For what it's worth, it has been a while since I have had the opportunity to host a segment of Anderson Speaks, almost a year, frankly, and I really missed it. Feel very blessed to have the opportunity to be back. I want to thank Dick Murgatroyd for filling in and doing a fantastic job in my absence. And again, I want to thank Anderson Community Television for the opportunity to be back. This is your March edition of Anderson Speaks, and right after this, we'll be back with our first guest. Hit it, Andy. And we're back with our first guest. Here with me, I have Krista Baston. She is the co-owner of Stonecry Resale Books in Anderson. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we've got a lot of things to cover here with you. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What's your connection outside the resale shop that we're going to discuss with Anderson Township, and a little bit about your family?
Okay, well, we are Anderson family. We live in Anderson. Our children go to Forest Hill schools. My husband and I are a blended family. We have 4 children, 2 daughters that are going to be 10 this month, his and mine, so they're 4 days apart. Wow. We have a son who is the whole purpose of the store, and he's actually my bonus son, but is Troy's son, and he just turned 13 on February 4th. Wow. And then we have Josh is going to be 20 in May.
So you have 3 very, very close in age.
Yes.
How has that been? How long have you guys been a blended family? I mean, they're used to each other by now.
Going on 8 years. So the girls have been together since they were 2.
Wow. And what is the sibling rivalry like between people that close in age? Who aren't twins, I guess.
They don't know any different. So they're very much sisters. And even Caleb, it's kind of like having triplets at times. So Caleb is, like I said, the reason for the store with him being autistic. We wanted to help. But also we've noticed with his age and his maturity level, it's kind of around his sisters, but very much he wants to be his brother.
That's a big gap to fill. You said the oldest is 20.
He'll be 20 in May, yes.
Wow. Off in college?
Somewhat. It's expensive, so we're all pulling together for it.
That's a whole other show.
Yes.
So what is Stonecry Resale Books all about?
We're a nonprofit raising money for autism. We do so through, we have a store that is 3,600 square feet and about 50,000 books. Wow. We also have CDs, DVDs, albums, boutique items such as jewelry, candles, things like that. So what we're trying to do, and what we've been able to do, is build this store. People have donated the books and the CDs and the DVDs. We have crafters that have donated some of their new jewelry and different items. Okay. And we sell those, and then from the profit, we are able to donate to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, also Autism Speaks, and Families with ASD out of Milford.
Wow, wow. So you say you have books and you have some kind of like odds and ends, bizarre things. Not bizarre and weird, but you know what I'm saying. Do you have a set, do you have a list of things you will take and won't take, or is it kind of in flux?
The only thing that we don't tend to take is the National Geographics and the encyclopedias. Okay. Unfortunately, National Geographics, they tend to pile up. Mm. And as much as I love them, we have quite a few, and the encyclopedias, you don't just get one. You get a whole set, and it takes a lot of space. And unfortunately, with the computer age, most everybody is, if they want to look something up, they'll look it up. So what I do is I try to keep at least one set on. We have crafters that'll come in and they'll buy things like that or other items, and in that way they can, like if they do, of course it's going to leave me now because I'm on camera, but if they do different crafts, they can cut out pictures, they can cut out the artwork, the words and things like that, and incorporate that into their craft or their art. Okay. Like mixed media art.
So outside of books and albums and CDs, movies, DVDs, VHS, is it more kind of craft related items?
Artist.
Or do you have clothes? What if someone had a moped? Anything crazy? I mean,
well, here's the thing. If something is donated to the store that we're unable to use, Peppermint Pig's right next door. And Peppermint Pig, you know, they do household items and things like that. So we try to keep it green. We try to keep it, you know, make sure that somebody can use it. So we do donate that to them. And they, in return, if they get an overflow of books, they will donate to us. They've donated our magazine rack. They've been very supportive.
Awesome.
So,
businesses coming together. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. And then we try to promote local businesses. We have the Business Spotlight of the Month, which is where the artists come in, and also other businesses, Allstate, and you know, the different individual artists. And they'll set up a table, they'll set up their display, and that's free. We offer that free to the other businesses.
Awesome.
What we ask, though, is if it's somebody that's going to sell something, if they will just donate 20% of what they have sold to the store. And most everybody sometimes will even donate 30 and 40, 50%, just because it gets the name out for them. It's free advertisement for them, and it's really nice. We just had an artist set up today, and I've already sold 2 of her items for her. So,
so it's a win-win for them and for the store and for the cause.
Yes, and that way you constantly have something visual that is changing, something that's different. A lot of times people go in to see the display because they know the artist. Sometimes they see the display because they're coming in for us. So it's really nice.
For a point of reference, where exactly are you guys located?
We're at 8253 Beachmont Avenue, which is near the intersection of 8 Mile. We're located in the same strip shopping center with Sizzling Walk, Pearl Vision. The new Dollar General has just moved into the area, or into our strip shopping center, and Peppermint Pig is also in that center.
Awesome. What's the atmosphere like in the store? You've already talked about having people come in, but actually, you may want to discuss the inspiration first, because I think that'll lead into why the atmosphere is so special. What was the inspiration? You guys kicked around some different ideas before you settled on autism.
Yes, we definitely, we looked at a bunch of different ideas. Caleb, obviously, is a big inspiration for us. He's, well, I have to get used to saying he's 13. He's 13 now. He's the coolest kid ever. I mean, all of my kids are cool. I'm a parent, that's what you say. But he's taught us so much, and we've learned so much from what autism is. I'm ADHD. My daughter is 9. She's ADHD. So there are certain things that I notice with him. There's certain lessons or certain strengths that he has, and then other things that, you know, he will have issues with. We really wanted to do something to help with autism. My husband and I are not doctors. We're not nurses. We're not therapists. You know, we're none of that. But we knew we could help somehow. So we kicked around just doing fundraising. My husband has the Stone Cry Band, and that way they could be hired and go from one place to the other.
Did you say your husband is in a band?
The Stone Cry Band.
Well, first of all, what does he do for work? How does he pay the
my
bills?
husband's a sergeant with the Cincinnati Police Department.
Okay.
So he has a real job. I have a fun job.
So a police officer who's also in a rock band?
Oh yeah, he rocks out.
What does he do? What does he play, sing? Dance? Is he the dancer?
No, well, he is a good dancer. Actually, it would be really funny. He's an excellent dancer, but
Awesome.
no, it's funny. We call it classic rock, but somebody just recently called it vintage rock. And I thought that was so he'll do some Christian music, and he'll do like the vintage rock, and it's fun. And it really is all fun. And he's got an excellent voice, and he has fun with it. And he's always dabbling with different musical instruments and things. So
That's awesome.
I wish I was talented. So, and getting back to it, what we wanted to do is to help with autism and raise money. We figured the best way to do it. First, it was fundraising. And we thought, you know what, this isn't enough. For some reason, we just felt like, you know, God was moving us in a different direction. So we decided, okay, the bookstore. And then we'd go, no, there's 4 kids. I had lost my job. You know, they closed my company. My husband worked worked his hours, and he had been shifted to 3rd shift. And it was just,
you went from dual income?
Yes.
To
His
his income, and then his shift.
And I was a stay-at-home mom.
Wow.
It was the most difficult job ever. I thank God I have somewhere to go during the day. But no, it was one of those things where, we went to an individual income, and we kept thinking, no, I have to go out, I have to get a job. We needed that income. We have 4 kids. Everything is swirling around as it is. And every time we came up with a reason why not, something happened that pushed us in the direction as to why.
Huh. So instead of we think we're ready, and then something happens and sets you back. You felt like, we're not sure, and then boom, a door opens, window opens.
Yes. So that's how the store happened. So we wanted to raise money. We wanted to be there for families. We wanted to have resources for families. So what we have there now is we have the Families with ASD who we raise money for. They have a Yellow Pages that they put out every year. And it has it's a good sized book, and it has different companies and businesses and therapists and different options that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. You wouldn't know where to go. You're told, okay, your child has autism, now what?
Okay.
We wanted to be there for that now what? We wanted to give them resources. We wanted to be an ear. We wanted to, help families and listen to them if they needed someone to listen to, or I've been blessed to hug people, Sometimes that's just what you need, especially when they're in the early stages of finding out what their child's needs are. It has just been an outstanding, incredible experience for me and fills me every day. And that's not what I intended on doing, but it's really cool that I'm able to be a part of the people's lives that come in.
Well, it sounds like if you just sold enough books and things to pay rent, there would still be a big impact you'd be making.
The impact is incredible for me, but yeah, if I could just afford, that's why I said for Christmas, my dream would be 2 months where I didn't have to worry about bills. That would be great. No stomach aches for 2 months, I'd love it. But if it wasn't hard work, it wouldn't be worth doing, I guess.
Tell us a little more about Caleb, and there's a spectrum, a range of functionality within autism a lot of people are aware of. Where does he fall, and what are the unique challenges that you face?
Oh, goodness. Well, Caleb, as I said, is 13. I came into his life when he was 5. Our girls were 2. Again, 4 days apart. So I had 3, he was at the time in pull-ups, I had 2 in diapers. He was not as high functioning. He was in a school that believed in, I hate to put it this way, but caging up the kids, I guess. And if they were special needs, they all kind of stayed over here and just, you got monitors, just don't even have teachers. And this is why we are so blessed to have Forest Hills schools here and to be able to move him into the schools here. He in 2nd grade he moved here, and he had never been introduced to math, never been introduced to reading or science or any of that.
Wow.
And was acting out, I think, because he just had so much more potential than what they were giving him there.
And understimulated.
Exactly, and he's an emulator. So if he saw negative behavior, he would emulate that negative behavior. In moving him into 2nd grade, he now had positive behavior, or age-appropriate behavior, which is really very important. And he is integrated into the classroom. This was over at his elementary school. They would integrate him into the classroom. They would take him out for resource room, and resource room was incredible because they would have like a rocking chair or bouncing, because a lot of repetitive is like self-soothing. And so he needed that. And then now that he is, in the middle school, he loves middle school so much better because, he is so smart and so independent. But they still have, he still has his resource room. He still has people that help him throughout the day. And that is just huge. But starting out, like I said, he had a lot of limitations. He was we had where he would throw himself at me, and he would have what people would see as tantrums. A lot of people will see that activity or that behavior in public and be like, oh, you need to get your brat under control. And it's not that he's being a brat. It's a lot of times, like with a family with autism, you would discuss, use your words.
Yeah.
Whenever a child comes in and they get so anxious and and they're ready to erupt, but they don't, it's because they can't get across what they're trying to say.
If they function and reason in a different way, you can't use the same sort of reaction or guidance you would.
He's made us think of things, how to approach things, where he's thinking it's this way, we're thinking it's this way, and we just kind of have to come around. And then you think of it from a totally different angle and you go, well, duh, and you kind of smack yourself in the forehead and realize you weren't understanding. And if we all kind of thought that way or all kind of understood that, then it would make a lot more sense. But he's very, black and white. The gray is really confusing for him. But he has progressed. He's high functioning. and just really smart, very creative. His sense of humor has really come in the past several years, or past couple years. It's been funny because he throws me off, or he'll throw other people, like my family members, off. And just a little story we were at my aunt's church, and she was showing him all the different rooms and where everything was. And he said, well, I have to go to the bathroom. And she said something, like the door was open and you could see it was a bathroom. And she says, well, that's a closet. And he went in and went to the bathroom and came back out. And she goes, did he? And I said, no, he's joking with you. So it was something I had to teach other people. He's joking. It's his sense of humor coming in. So, because they weren't used to that. So
that's cool to see the development. Very cool.
It is. Yeah.
Well, how has your experience, your understanding, what you learned from him, how is that translated into the store? What is it about? We know what makes Caleb special. What makes the store special in regards to your experience with him and his autism?
Well, we wanted the store to be family friendly, special needs friendly. We have it set up to where there are tables and chairs. We have kind of a cafe area. We have a stage. We have live music periodically. Like, we want to put out a calendar to let people know when live music is, because some of the sensor issues that children have are loud noises. Caleb has a temperature sensitivity, like cold and hot. He hates to be cold. So we want them to have that ability to go somewhere and enjoy the music that's family positive. We have a great kids area, which the kids love. Most of the times the kids will walk in the front door, head straight back to the kids area and leave their parents in the dust, you know. So, but just if there's something that's going to happen, we understand. If there's a child laying in a fetal position, you know, don't sweat it, Mom. We understand that. That
so
happens.
For families who have children like Caleb, this is an atmosphere, this is a store they can be in where in situations where you feel like people have looked at you and judged you,
yes,
they can go through the same thing, and you guys are going to be like, we know what that's like, or here's a tip, or just stand back and say,
I just stay back and just comfort the mom sometimes, or whatever needs to happen happens. But yeah, I had an experience at a place I don't want to name. Where when Caleb was at 5, had so many, I call it falling out, and he was scissor kicking in public and knocking into tables and things like that. And I'm trying to, and this is my first time out with all 3 kids. So I already was nervous because I was just used to 1 2-year-old. Now I had 2 2-year-olds and a 5-year-old.
And it's not like his condition, he's really okay with a lot of change and big things like that.
Well, he didn't. So. I still to this day don't know what triggered him. But something triggered him, and he just did all of this, and I was a wreck by the time this all ended. They all thought I was beating my child, I guess, and you'd put him in a chair and he'd fall over, and I was learning. I knew nothing about autism other than, you know, he looks just like every other kid, and people don't understand. Those were the only things I knew about autism coming into this relationship. And wow, it was an incredible lesson.
Wow. You know, we just have a couple minutes left.
I'm sorry.
So before we go, no, nothing to apologize for. Before we go, I want the folks at home to know how they can support, how they can help, and also if you want to give any specifics about, you name some of the places that you give, just the impact that they can make in that part of the resale store, and the different, I guess, avenues or channels that they have to help out.
Okay. Well, honestly, we love donations of books, CDs, DVDs. We are a 501c3, which means that we are a nonprofit. We can give you a receipt for your taxes for anything that's been donated. We have Walk Now for Autism Speaks is coming up in May. They do that at Coney Island this year, and we're building a team for that. So if you'd like to walk, raise money for the Stone Cry Resale Books team, that's a wonderful thing to, you know, we have the puzzle pieces we sell and things like that. We also have, we're raising money for Cincinnati Children's Hospital and for families with ASD. Again, they do the Yellow Pages every year, and they do an expo every year. It's in usually the end of September, beginning of October time. So it's all wonderful resources for families. We want to really cover autism research, family support, and awareness. So the store is the awareness, the walk team is the awareness, and then Children's Hospital and Autism Speaks is for the research, and also, you know, the resource is also the Yellow Pages and Families with ASD.
What do you need to keep Stonecry going and growing?
Well, it would be really crazy not to say money. Unfortunately, I have to ask for money, and I know money doesn't make the world go round, but it really helps with making the store go round. Book donations, CD donations, DVDs, those types of things.
And then people coming in buying those.
Yes, and then the customers. We've had some major maintenance issues. June before last, when the flooding of Anderson happened, they unfortunately pulled our air conditioning unit that day, and literally rained water into our store, and it followed all the metal tracks. So we did a lot of replacement of shelves and books and things like that. So yes, that's our marketing. So word of mouth has been what our marketing has been, because we've lost our budget for that.
Well, this is a good place to do that. Again, this is Krista Baston, co-owner of Stonecry Resale Books. Go check them out. She's got to get back to work, and we'll be right back with our next guest. We are back here on Anderson Speaks with our next guest. We are delighted to have an ACTV vet. She's a member of the board, and she actually has her own show, so she is no rookie. With me is Ann Schlegel, and she's here to talk about containment gardening, containment gardening. And she is the host, for those of you who are interested, Tasty Treats from Ann's Kitchen. So if plants and things aren't your thing, but Tasty Treats are, then we can catch you there. But Ann, welcome to the show. This is not your first time on Anderson Speaks.
Oh no, I've been here before. The last time was around Thanksgiving, when I gave a recipe for a Thanksgiving dessert. And so I'm really happy to be back here today.
I bet people love when they see you on here. They're like, what goodies are we going to get today? But this is, like you said, you have the show about, you do the Tasty Treats and cooking and stuff. This is a little bit different. We're going to be dealing with certain aspects of gardening, and then, like we said, containment containers. So what is containment gardening? What does it consist of, and why would anybody want to do it? What are the benefits?
Well, container gardening is really growing plants in containers. And I grow a variety of plants in containers. I grow vegetables and herbs and flowers, and I've had great success with it. I use a variety of containers, ranging from large, which this is probably the largest one I use for tomatoes, and to smaller ones that are suitable for small herbs. And why you would want to do container gardening? I found over the years that it's a really easy way to garden. One of the obstacles to gardening in the ground that I have at our home is that our soil is very poor quality. It's very high in clay, very heavy, difficult to work with. Also, we have a lot of deer and rabbits around our property because we have a lot of trees and it's a nice shelter for them. And they just love to eat vegetables and flowers too. So we have a deck at the back of our house. It has 10 steps going up to it, and no deer or rabbits have ever been up on that deck. So that was one way that we could avoid having our plants eaten by the deer and rabbits. Now squirrels come up there too, but they don't really do much damage. They just dig a little bit, which is okay. So by growing things in containers, you can control the soil and get better quality vegetables and flowers. So
I'm trying to imagine this for folks at home who have wanted to garden. Maybe, like you said, maybe they have really bad soil. Maybe they've tried and it hasn't worked. Here, it doesn't matter what the soil in your yard is like. It doesn't. You could not have a yard. You could have just a concrete patio as your backyard.
Oh,
you could have a garden because you're gonna create the nutrient-rich soil, and you know, a lot of people, they don't want to bend over and do all the back-breaking work. I can imagine somebody just sitting down and pruning something and just pulling it right up to their favorite chair on the back deck and
yes.
been able to, hey, I'm gardening.
Yes, in fact, that's what I do all the time. I've got
I
a
like
table.
your way of gardening a lot better.
I've got a table outside, and I just set the pot on the table if it's not too big. With something that I've planted in a big container like this, I just pull up a chair beside it and sit down and prune it and work in the soil with it, and it's just very easy. It's really a lazy person's way to garden.
No, I wouldn't say lazy. I say smart. There's working hard and working smart. You know, a lot of people, when they think of gardening, they think of like rows and rows, and they start to picture farmers with like a horse pulling a plow, and they think, oh, this backbreaking work. This sounds more like Mr. Miyagi trimming a bonsai tree, which I would prefer over walking behind a horse and a plow.
Oh, yes.
So just to kind of get people's creative juices going, what are the sort of things that you grow specifically? You talked about tomatoes, some herbs. Do you grow things just for aesthetic purposes, or how often are you able to harvest and actually eat or use the things that you're growing?
Well, one advantage of container gardening is that you can start things indoors a little bit earlier than you can outside. Mm-hmm. And so I usually start things like around April or even in March, the end of March, and get things going inside and then transfer them to a container. And the containers are easily movable, so I can put them outside on a nice day, and if it's going to be a frosty night, just bring them indoors to the garage. And I use a soilless potting mix to start out with. So that's a very light material. It's easy to move the containers. And so that's one advantage.
Do you ever have to weed?
Very rarely.
Wow.
Like maybe 1 or 2 weeds will sprout up now and then when the containers are sitting outside. But it's just, you know, with gardening in the ground, you're constantly having to weed.
Yeah.
That's one thing you really don't need to do
So
very much of.
You're not going out and digging, preparing the land, putting the stuff in, fighting against the weeds and the grasses that want to come in, but you're probably in the same amount of area able to get just as much yield of whatever it is that you're growing.
Mm-hmm. I do get quite a bit of vegetables. I have a good supply of cucumbers usually that I grow, enough to make a couple gallons of pickles.
Wow.
And so that's always a treat. There are really 2 kinds of treats: the treats I make on my show and the treats I get from my garden, I think.
Awesome.
Because the fresh vegetables that you get from your own container, your own garden, are so tasty. They're just so delicious. There's just nothing like going right out to the deck and picking a tomato and having it for supper that night.
Some people think of something like that and they think, oh, that's so kind of old-fashioned. But there is something very fulfilling about having, not necessarily that you made it, but helping have produced it, of that kind of sense of sustainability, that sense of independence of, I planted this, I grew it, now I can go enjoy it. What are some, I don't know how much you can speak to this, but what do you think are even like health benefits of if you have room, growing a lot of vegetables and stuff in your backyard in pots like this as opposed to in your yard or buying them from other places? Do they tend to be healthy? I mean, obviously you can control what goes into the soil, so you know there was no certain pesticides or different things that went in. Uh-huh. What sort of benefits do you think people can get from something like that?
Oh, well, the health benefits of eating fresh vegetables, I think they're just, I think that's really one big advantage of growing things like this in your own containers. And when it's fresh and has fully ripened on the plant, rather than being shipped across the country, there's evidence that vegetables like that have a lot more vitamins in them and are better for you. And besides that, they just taste better. The flavor is just so much more intense, and the tomatoes are sweet, and even the green beans. There's just nothing like fresh green beans picked right from the plant and then eaten, you know, cooked and eaten and seasoned up a little bit. It's just amazing what flavor you can get.
Is this something you would suggest for folks who are trying to eat more like truly organic?
Yes, I would. It's just really for anybody, though. Everyone can benefit from this.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So what makes a container? Do you look all around and just see, yeah, that could be a container, that could be a container? Is there rules, is there rhyme or reason, or are there any criteria that you think that makes a good container for growing in, or that wouldn't be a good one?
Well, just about anything that holds dirt can be a container. However, you want it to have drain holes too, because you'll be wanting to water your plants, and if they're sitting outside, they may get a lot of rain on them at certain points, and so you'll want that to drain off. And so I've used like this here. This is a bucket. Sealant for the driveway came in this.
Okay.
And we cleaned it up really, really well and drilled holes in the bottom of it. So we did that with this, and I grow a sunflower in this every year.
Really? That's neat.
And it loves it. My sunflowers always do really well in buckets. And I think it's just a little bit of country in the suburbs to have a sunflower growing in a bucket.
That's neat.
So, but I think I kind of digressed there.
Well, I would say it sounds like, especially if you have things in your home or in a place, maybe not so much of an outdoor patio, but in a sunroom or anything, sounds like you need to be cautious of the drainage issue. That's about, is that really the only mess you come into, or are there any other messy situations that come up with this?
Well, regarding what kind of containers you should use, it's always helpful too to make sure that your container fits the plant.
There we go.
You know, that you're growing. Tomatoes can get very big, and so their roots require a larger container, so that's why I use something like this. So I think probably for smaller plants you'd be fine with a 6-inch, container. For vegetables, you'd want at least 14 inches, I think, in diameter.
Okay.
So, and I would recommend probably like at least 8 inches deep.
Okay.
So that the roots have room to really develop and thrive there.
Now, as far as cost, I mean, obviously, when you grow your own fruits and vegetables, you're actually saving some money because you're able to consume that, so go out and buy it. But besides that, what is the average cost of the bucket, the specific soil, the seeds, and the upkeep? Is it relatively inexpensive to do this, or is there any sort of kind of significant investment you need to make?
Well, that depends really on your desires as a gardener. For me, I've really taken the cheap route, and this large container here I got at a landscape supply place, and I got it like 15 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been using this container every year. I know, well, one thing that I do that I think helps is to cover the container. I cover this, since it's black, with aluminum foil. I cover the outside with aluminum foil because black absorbs sunlight, and with the location of our deck, we get lots of sun there. And on 90-degree days, the sunlight, I think, would probably just fry the roots, because it would absorb, the black would absorb so much heat. And so by putting aluminum foil on it, that reflects the heat off of the container.
So there are some tips and tricks and modifications you can do to kind of keep these things going for longer. Yes,
but I mean, like, that was $5, but 15 years ago. It'd probably be a little bit more now. But I think this is something that trees come in. This kind of a container, and that's why it was so cheap.
Okay.
So
but you can go, like you said, the free route with the 10-gallon bucket. You could go buy a really, $100, some pedestal thing or something that's made out of concrete, and fill it and have it be as extravagant as you want. It's really kind of up to your personal taste, isn't it?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. I mean, this here we have a typical, the kind of the terracotta color that most people think of. What do we have growing in there?
That's rosemary.
Oh, hi, rosemary.
Yes, and I like to use rosemary a lot in my cooking.
There you
go. And I started this plant last year, so last spring, and it was just very small when I got it. And it stayed outside over the summer, and I brought it indoors in November. And I wasn't sure if it would survive the winter. It would survive the winter if we had one like last year, where it was very mild.
Yes.
But I'm not so sure if we can be that lucky this year. And so it's doing really well. I'm really pleased with how it's getting along, and I'm just letting it rest for a few months until I take it back outside again.
For folks at home who this has piqued their interest, do you have any suggestions for something to start with that's pretty easy to kind of get the ball rolling, something that's hardy and easy to take care of, or is it kind of, there's lots of different ways they can go with it?
Oh, well, if you want to do a vegetable, I really recommend starting with a tomato. And there are a lot of different kinds of tomatoes. I like husky red cherry tomatoes. They're really nice. And there are some kinds of tomatoes that are for patios. They don't get that big.
Okay.
And you'd still want to start them in a big container, though. But they won't branch out all over the place.
They'll get
So,
wild.
yes, but I really think you get a lot for your money when you grow a tomato plant. And you can get a lot of tomatoes off of one plant. So
You've mentioned some already, but what are some of your staples? Especially, I love flowers, I love the aesthetics, but I think that, you know, a vegetable garden can be just as beautiful. So in concerns of things you can actually consume, what are some of your staples? What are the things you're going to have in your container garden every year?
Well, I will always have tomatoes, like I mentioned. I'll always have green beans. And I have a rectangular container, maybe about like this and this, you know, this size. And I grow green beans in that, and they do really well. It's about this deep. And I also grow cucumbers because I like to make my own pickles. And
I love pickles.
yes, and so I will grow those. And those are really the big three of my vegetables. I've also grown cantaloupe, and they're a little bit more challenging to grow in a container. I tried growing them with a cage. That's another thing you need for tomatoes too, is to have a cage for them to rest their branches on. And the thing with cantaloupe is they get so heavy, the cantaloupe will, that you need something to support it with.
Okay.
And if you can kind of concoct something, that's what I had to do, to support the cantaloupe with, you'll be fine.
They're the newborn baby of the plant world, aren't they? That help hold the head up. I really like this idea because, again, I'm thinking of people who have bad soil, who have no yard at all, even people who are in kind of congested areas, if they have a rooftop area or a balcony. I mean, you can kind of create your own container in a way. I know I've seen pictures of people who have used pretty but like old bathtubs, and they've done things with that. I can imagine somebody who maybe has a bad back and can't bend over, but they could create something higher up, kind of almost at waist high, chest high, and work with that. I think thinking outside the box and realizing we can really kind of transplant and do this stuff in a lot of different ways, a lot of different areas, opens up opportunities for people.
Oh yes, it does. And children can do this, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's a great family activity.
That's awesome.
So,
Tell you what, my wife and I have discussed some planters here and there, and I think we need to give it a try this year. I think it would be somewhat miraculous for me to get anything to grow, but I think this seems almost foolproof in a way. Like I said, you're creating your own nutrient soil or nutrient-rich soil, and that oftentimes is the hardest part, isn't it? Just getting that good base for the roots.
yes.
Well, Ann, is there anything else you want to throw in about tools of the trade? What are some things you suggest people have on hand to do a good job with this?
Well, there is one other thing I'd like to mention. Sometimes you might get a garden pest in the vegetable garden.
Okay.
And one thing I've found really helpful for that is yellow sticky traps.
Okay.
And you can find these at some garden centers. You can find these maybe in garden catalogs too. But they have a sticky substance on both sides of a sheet. It's like a sheet of paper. It's not paper though. And you can stick that in your container to help control things like aphids and whiteflies.
There we go.
And the bad bugs are attracted to the yellow and the good bugs aren't.
Oh, good.
That's how that works.
Good, because there's an
Yes.
ecosystem of good and bad, and there's some that we want there. So,
Yes.
so if anyone's interested in home, educate yourself on that too. Well, Ann, this is flying by. We're flown by. We're out of time, but I know we'll get to see more of you back on Anderson Speaks and on your show Tasty Treats from Ann's Kitchen. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. I know people got a lot of good stuff out of this.
Oh, well, great. Well, thanks for having me here again today.
Our
It's just
pleasure.
been a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Ann's going to get out of here, but we will be right back with one more guest. Stick around. Welcome back to Anderson Speaks. And in this segment, we don't have just one guest for you, but an entire forum. So I have the honor right now of introducing to you our three guests for this spot. I have with me Keith White, Mike Desmere, and Louisa Serta. I want to welcome you all to the show and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Before we get into the meat of things, real quick, just introduce yourselves again and just give the folks at home your connection with Anderson Township. Mike, you want to go first? Or Keith, excuse me.
Keith. I'm Keith White, and I'm a resident of Anderson Township. I'm a sudden cardiac arrest survivor, and I'm with the AED Heart Savers, a nonprofit organization, so I'm trying to help them raise sudden cardiac arrest awareness.
Awesome.
I'm Louisa Serta. I live in Cincinnati for 12 years now. I first in Montgomery, the city of Montgomery, and now in Mason. And my son passed away in 2010, so I was kindly asked by AED Heart Savers to be here today to share my story.
My name is Mike Desmere. I'm the treasurer of the Board of Trustees of AED Heart Savers. I'm a local CPA, and I've been associated with not-for-profits for over 20 years now.
Fantastic. Again, thank you all for coming on, and I'm eager to get to your all's stories. Before we do, the main reason for being here is through your organization, AED Heart Savers. Your all's mission is to raise awareness of what sometimes we call SCA, which is sudden cardiac arrest. Who wants to more specifically define that, and then how is that different than what we know of like heart attacks and things like that?
A heart attack gives you signs, symptoms, and warnings, whereas sudden cardiac arrest, you just drop dead.
Wow.
So heart attack, you have numbness, you have chest pain, you have nausea. So sometimes you can drive yourself to the hospital, and some of the heart attack patients that I've known have driven themselves to the hospital and gotten the help they needed. Whereas sudden cardiac arrest, you just drop dead. Like in my case, I was an active field hockey player, coaching Monday through Friday with no signs, symptoms, warnings. Whole of Saturday, I was driving around and went to our Immaculate Heart of Mary dinner dance and just collapsed on the floor just like that.
Wow.
So I was gone for 6.5 minutes.
Wow. So when you say people drop dead, you dropped dead.
I dropped dead, yeah.
Wow.
There's no breathing, no pulse, nothing.
Wow. Do we know what is the cause of this?
Well, that's the thing. They're trying to find out. There are so many causes. It's family history, it's stress, it's it could be a plumbing problem which is like a heart attack. If you have clogged arteries, that can change into a cardiac arrest. From a heart attack, you can get a sudden cardiac arrest. Now, I'm not a medical professional, but this is from my research and reading up on what I've seen.
So the sudden cardiac arrest happened. Just that is more of a, I don't want to say generalization, more of a label for how it happens, as far as like the timing of it, just boom, that quickly, versus to what caused it, as in the heart just stopped, or there was something that was clogged, or it got attacked by a virus, or anything like that. Am I correct in
Yes,
that
you're right.
understanding?
Yeah, when I went to the hospital, they took the test, and then they found that I had 2 blocked arteries.
Wow.
So that could have caused from for me to get a sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow, wow. So when did AED Heart Savers come about, and then when did each of you get involved in that?
Okay. We realized that there's a great need for awareness about sudden cardiac arrest. We became active in the community through, it was very grassroots. It was locally right here in Anderson Township. And about a year ago, we applied for and got a 501c3 certification from the IRS. We are also incorporated in the state of Ohio as a not-for-profit organization.
Okay. Okay. So about a year old officially, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And when was your experience?
In 2004, September 18th.
I bet you know the exact date.
Yeah.
What was the recovery like from that?
It took me about 6 months to really get myself together. The emotional aspect lasted a longer time, so that's the reason why I changed the whole concept of trying to get passionate and being proactive as opposed to feeling sorry for myself. And I wanted to, merge with these folks and get things going and raise the awareness, because there are too many young kids that are dying from sudden cardiac arrest, and that shouldn't happen. And that shouldn't happen.
Because a lot of times we think of, lifestyles, like you said, stress, old age. In the heart attack commercials, you tend to see elderly folks.
Yep.
But you're saying there's an epidemic.
I mean, it's grown. I mean, these kids are athletes. You're not looking at kids who are just lying and doing nothing, or who are very sick, etc. When they're born, these are active kids, and they just drop on the soccer field, at the in a swimming pool, or at a basketball court, etc.
I've got some numbers on what we're looking at here. In the United States, about 400,000 people die annually from sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow.
That's the #1 killer. And it's not published, we don't think of it that way, but it's the #1 killer. And about 7,000 of that number are children.
Wow.
That's right, the children. And many of the tragedy is that many of these deaths could have been prevented if the children, for example, or even the adults had been tested, the issue diagnosed and treated. A lot of lives would have been saved, because it's known that about 80% of the folks who suffer from sudden cardiac arrest have underlying health issues, such as Keith mentioned. So our mission is to spread awareness of this terrible things. See, everybody dies of cardiac arrest. Sudden cardiac arrest is what we're addressing here.
Yeah.
So our mission is to spread awareness of that, sudden cardiac arrest, to teach people CPR, to train people to operate an AED, to free lease AEDs in the community to organizations that do not have it. They're too small to buy one. They don't have the resources. And also to advocate on behalf of the young sports stars, the student athletes, that they should go in for heart examinations prior to engaging in sports activity.
Awesome. I want to talk about AEDs. I want to talk about CPR. Before we get there real quick, Louisa, you are a victim of sudden cardiac arrest, just a different avenue than Keith went through. Tell us about your experience.
My son Kyle died from an arrhythmia, and neither the autopsy nor the genetic testing uncovered any physical defect or any abnormality.
Wow.
So this is very complex. I mean, sudden cardiac arrest is not something that is straightforward and can be linked to anything specifically. So what I would say is that parents should be watching for the telling signs. I remember 2 years before he passed away during training, he mentioned that he was having difficulty breathing. So I took him to Children's Hospital in Mason. He had an EKG done. Nothing. The doctor didn't even talk to us back then. It's just, the nurse saying there's nothing. So he kept on going, because when you're doing a sport, you think that the difficulty of breathing is related to precisely the exercise. Yeah. And so what I would advise parents is to keep an eye on children fainting. And if they faint during exercise, or if they're claiming they have some difficulty of breathing, go beyond the EKG, go into a Holter monitor, go into more extensive testing, because even in my case, all the testing, genetic included, did not uncover anything specifically to this date. So it's hard, it's complex.
And what was your son's name again?
Jose Cerda.
Jose. And how old was he?
He died in his 18th birthday.
Wow. Wow. And he was an athlete?
He was a swimmer, swimming with a very competitive team, the Marlins. So he died at St. X during a Marlins practice, and he used to be playing water polo.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the conditioning it takes to be a swimmer, especially water polo and stuff, he was in tip-top shape. He was no slouch. He wasn't sitting around playing video games all day.
Absolutely.
He was out there. So
training twice a day.
to be that young and in that good a shape for this to happen to him is very frightening, very scary. And I'm sure obviously it was a tragedy for you and other people listening. I hope it's perking their ears because as you say, there's no, with a heart attack, you have the immediate signs and you can kind of go, I know what that is, but the things you're talking about, the breathing or some of the other signs, they're not directly related to, and it's hard to know.
No, exactly. And 80% of the victims have an underlying heart issue. And the heart issue that Keith was talking about was the plumbing issues. Sudden cardiac arrest comes from an electrical short circuit that stops the heart. And death from that, I'm not a medical professional myself, but your heart goes into fibrillation, it quivers. And the quivering slowly stops. At that point, you're completely dead. Chest compressions enables you to get some blood from your heart to your brain and at least buy some time until the paramedics arrive. An AED, an automated external defibrillator, could shock the heart back into an efficient rhythm and get that going again. So there's a lot, we in our organization attempts to address all of those gaps.
So your angle on awareness is, right now we don't have our thumb on what causes this or how to see it coming, but we do know that if we have people trained in CPR, if we have AEDs available, that when this does happen, we can significantly increase the chances for survival if these things are on hand. What kind of success have you guys had with that, with CPR training, with the AEDs? What are some stories of kind of inroads you've made there?
We have taught CPR at Delhi and Madeira middle schools. We partnered with the American Heart Association, the Red Cross, currently partnering with Oxford Blood Center. We also partner with the National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Association and their foundation. We organize a heart dance-a-thon to promote heart-healthy exercise through dance last year in October. We taught CPR at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Summer Festivals and at the Men's Fellowship League right down the street. We also taught CPR at the American Heart Association Madeira Heart Chase events in 2011 and 2012. We've been pretty active.
Wow. You guys have gotten a lot done in 2 years.
Exactly. We work through volunteers. We have a very energetic, very invested group of volunteers. All of our funding and none of our services are of any charge. You don't pay. It's all free.
Awesome.
All of our revenue comes from donations from individuals and organizations.
So is your main focus the CPR and the AEDs, or is it just as much on
advocating
helping fund research?
Heart examinations
so preventative
for young,
as much
exactly,
as reactionary.
that's very important.
That's key, especially for young athletes. You know, just a physicals is not going to do it. You know, we want to get in, you know, make the schools and the doctors, you know, go more intense, and EKG, heart echo, etc. can help. You know, it won't hurt. So it might be a little bit expensive, but what dollar value do you put on life?
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Wow. So what's your vision from here on out? What are some ways you want to grow, or where do you want to continue and kind of put some roots down?
We have more events planned for this year, going to schools and talking about heart health and advocating young athletes being tested, including the heart test with the annual physical. Okay. We are approaching foundations for large amounts of funding for AEDs to put them out with small clubs, other civic organizations, at small sporting events. People who cannot afford it, we want to put AEDs and give someone a chance. If we save even one life, we've done a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Keith, you have some things here with you. You
Yeah,
brought
I've got an
AED
AED.
here?
This is the one that saved my life. So,
Really? This is the same one?
This is exactly the same one.
The same model.
Same model, same, you know, manufacturer, etc. So if this hadn't been there, I wouldn't be talking to you.
So if you're saying we have these on sidelines, we have these in churches and buildings and schools, this is going to be able to keep people alive. We can't necessarily know if it's coming, but when it happens,
Yes.
we're going to be there.
And it's very simple to use. And I mean, you're talking a 6th, 8th grader could operate it because the machine talks to you. There are diagrams here. This is the pads, and on the pads it shows you where to put the pads, and it's all written just a few minutes.
So it's not like in the movies, you don't need a doctor barking instructions at you.
Exactly. It talks to you. So it walks you step by step. It's like a 3 to 4 step process. And this makes a big difference in saving a life. So,
Louisa, when your son passed, was there anything available like this?
Absolutely. I mean, to the credit of the swim team where my son was practicing, and they did have the AED. They didn't use it because of the protocols that they had, so they waited for the paramedics. I think, I mean, we need to go beyond actually having the AED to make sure, like, I mean, take advantage of, I mean, actually practicing, because seconds count. It's not just, I mean,
yes.
it's a matter of seconds.
It's exponential. The first 30 seconds is like the next, hour or something. It's so vital. I understand that. So what has it been like sharing your story with folks? I mean, you're how far removed? Only 2 years? 3
Yes,
years maybe?
2 years. 2 years and a couple of months.
How
2
long
months.
did it take you to be able to start speaking about this?
From day zero, I mean, I think it's important for us to speak up as it's a way to heal. It's a way to help others. So, and I started a foundation in his memory. It was to give back to the community and to give back to the sports that he loved. Awesome. So for me, I mean, it's important that I do this.
Awesome. And Keith, when you had your experience, my first thought is, I mean, I blew up my Achilles a couple years ago. And just from that, I'm like, there was times I was scared to do something. There was timidity that wasn't there before. Did you get like right back in the saddle with life afterwards, or was there an adjustment time where you had to say, I don't think I can do this. I'm afraid this will happen again. Did you look down and go, I don't know what's going to happen with you today? What was that like?
I went back to coaching barely 4 weeks after that, just on the sidelines, of course, not running with the kids. And because I was just into it and I didn't want to let my kids down, so I had to be present there. So after 4 weeks, of course, I couldn't drive. My son used to drive me back and forth. And I attended, the few games that were left over for the season. So I just wanted, and then it did take me after that because of the involvement in my coaching. It was, I kept busy. But then after that, it started hitting me like, why me? Type of thing.
So you were back in the saddle again right away.
Yes.
But then you stayed busy, kind of keep your mind off of it.
Right,
Then
and
you had
then I
time to start
figured,
to think.
right, and that's when I said, we got to do something. And then a friend of mine lost his brother-in-law to sudden cardiac arrest a few years ago, and that's when we decided to do something. And, and then we are hearing so many kids dying, and that shouldn't happen. They are the future. Mm-hmm. So we want to do something, make an impact. So maybe if we save one life, that to me is a reward. Mm-hmm. I was very blessed. Just about a few days prior to my event, a couple of weeks prior to my event, they had an AED and I was saved. I had a firefighter who's the assistant fire chief, Tom. He was the one who saved me, Tom Rietma.
Wow.
So I was very blessed that he was there and he knew what to do.
We have less than a minute left. We have to wrap up briefly. Where can people go for more information on this, and what are some avenues through which they can help you guys and support you guys?
We have, you can contact us by email, which is aedhotsavers@gmail.com. There's a phone number also, which is 474-0219. You could, give me a call, give Mike a call, Louisa a call. We're all working for the common, goal of trying to save lives from sudden cardiac arrest.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Guys, thanks for coming on the show and
sharing.
Thank you
very
this.
much.
Thank you for having us.
Love to have you guys back, follow up with more of your growth and more of your success.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we are all out of time. I want to thank you all for joining us and for having me back. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a good day.